room, so that's good. Welcome everyone to the Australia Coupe. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. There's still goddamn music in the background. We're live streaming today. It's a bit of a test for next week, which is the final. I'm going to stand up here next to Liquor. The Australia Coupe kind of came out as a bit of a dream. I have always really loved the idea of Australian spirits, obviously. And I always looked at the way that we had international competitions, such as the Signature Blend, the multiple other competitions that I can't really name right now. And looked at it in a kind of way where it's great for international brands, but there was nothing that really used Australian spirits on a national platform. We are very lucky to be one of the very few 100% Australian craft spirits bars. Gold Bar in Hobart, Rosella's in Broadbeach. You've got the others, and then you've got Seb, who started it with Bad Frank in Melbourne. And that man kind of pioneered Australian craft spirits bars at a time when there was very few Australian craft spirits. And then from that, a lot of Australian craft distillers have been able to kind of build a whole heap of kind of a library of spirits that we can now use and actually make amazing cocktails that rival like what the world offers. Which is kind of the point at which I looked at and said, if I'm going to enter into the Australian craft spirits world now, we should be really relishing this and utilising this moment in time where we can start actually celebrating these things and getting together all of the Australian bars and people who use Australian spirits and start making drinks with it. Some weird little stats that I found when I've gone around the country and looked at distillers and bars around the world, around the country. When I went to South Australia, probably about 40% of the back bar was Australian products. When I went to Melbourne, maybe 30% of the back bar was Australian products. Hobart, Tasmania, 50 to 60% of that back bar is Australian. I think it's because they can't really get much in. And then in Sydney, it's like 5%. And it's like 4 pillars, 4 toms, or Archie Rose. And that's a little bit troubling because essentially you get to a point where Sydney's, I would say, a very big market for people who like to drink. And when we only have 5% of the share of the back bar, that's quite concerning that we're not really supporting our local producers. Then a pandemic happened, and we had suppliers come to us and reps come to us, and you could see the kind of ease on their face when they would talk to us. This is after they were furloughed and told that they had no job for an unknown amount of time, and then they'd come back and tell us that there's a shortage of bullet bourbon because the Port of Canada closed. So there was a possibility you weren't going to get bullet into Australia for like 4 months. They tell us about there's a shortage of tequila being shipped over to any other country in the world because Mexico's gone into lockdown. And I kind of looked around and I looked at Australian distillers making a shit ton of hand sanitizer and kind of realised that we are in the best position to get a really steady stream of booze. And we're making world quality booze. Like you look at the International Spirits Awards competitions, and we often rank quite highly in all of them. San Francisco, London, even the Australian Distilled Spirits Awards, you get some amazing results out of that. And I kind of sit there and still was looking around and going, there is absolutely no representation for Australian bartenders to make cocktails and like celebrate the idea of making Australian cocktails. So we kind of, during COVID, started thinking of all the ways that we could mainly stay alive, and then looked at ways that we could push others into the idea of supporting Australian products. And so that's where the Australian Coupe came from. It's been really, really rewarding looking at the response. I doubted very highly that we would get anyone to look at us. As an Australian craft spirits bar, no one in the country cares about you. Everyone's like, oh cool, you guys are in King's Cross, right, enjoy yourself. Until you get to a certain point and you're buying something like 14 litres of gin a week. And then people are like, ooh, those guys might be doing some things. And there's other places around the country that are using Australian products and aren't really getting the recognition. So all of a sudden, when we launched this, I think a lot of bartenders suddenly had this amazing idea to use that bottle of Adelaide Hills Ruby Bitter that was behind them, or something that Four Pillars gin, or there was some amazing Mount Tambourine liqueurs that had been sitting in the back bar, and they suddenly had a reason to use them and use them as a hero spirit. So that was quite exciting. Then we had bars, amazing bars around the country, kind of jump on board as well. We reached out initially to a couple of bars that we thought would be great to kind of help us out with a national search for good Australian cocktails. A lot of bars didn't have the time, as it was Christmas, and we gave them very little time to be prepared. And then we had places like Savile Row in Brisbane jump on board. We had Haynes & Co in South Australia. We had Arcade Palace in Perth jump in, and Bad Frankie obviously in Melbourne, Gold Bar in Tasmania. And we were able to kind of build this amazing collection of really incredible, world-renowned cocktail bars, and well-known in their locations as well, who really got excited about it. And they championed their local bartenders to kind of get on board with it. So that was encouraging. And then we started getting in all the submissions and the registrations, and I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of people that like Australian spirits. And that may sound like it's not much to you guys, because you're all in an Australian craft spirit bar and an Australian craft spirits competition, but it is huge. For you guys to, especially in New South Wales, to really pick up the mantle and kind of like run with this idea of using all Australian products is incredible. And what it does is it forces not only you guys to think about it, but the bartender next to you while you talk about your ideas and talk about the kind of ways in which you want to use Australian botanicals, Australian spirits, juices, sugars, spices, all those things with the person next to you, who then talks to their manager, who then looks at the idea of, well, maybe these products that we've been using in this competition are good enough to buy and put on our back bar. And then that stimulates a conversation between a manager and owner with a distributor or a brand ambassador. And then you start getting, slowly but surely, a conversation between venues and the local producers in the area. Now, we threw the gauntlet down and said, we want you to make contact with your local distilleries. New South Wales did an amazing job. Melbourne is obviously very spoilt for choice. South Australia was very spoilt for choice. And it was really, really rewarding to start seeing these people kind of reach out and engaging. And distilleries got really excited too, because for once they were getting contacted for like sample bottles and by bartenders who were like, hey, I want to make a cocktail out of your thing and submit it for $500 cash and a whole heap of booze. They got so excited that we got a whole heap more booze to give away as prizes. So while I'm here, I just want to say thank you to literally every bottle and producer here. Manu from Tobacco really led the charge here. We've obviously got stuff from the guys at Hartshorn Distillery, Prohibition, Tiny Bear, Backwoods and Yakandanda. We've got some Four Pillars Roku Gin, which is apparently quite rare. Taylor and Smith Dry Gin, a Magnum of Vermouth, because as Manu likes to say, you can have your Magnum Vermouth parties. Does anyone have those, actually? Because he tells me it's an actual thing. We've got some Bricks, Urban Cane, and the MGC. Now, when we did this and we started talking to all these distilleries, people started talking to us all of a sudden, and people were like, oh, you guys are doing that amazing competition with Australian craft spirits. And I was like, yeah, we've been around for 2 years as well. And we started really learning a lot more, because they opened their doors up and started explaining to us what they do. Like, if you look at all these brands, like Mate Night kind of competes on the world stage with vermouth. Like, they are renowned as probably one of Australia's best examples of an amazing vermouth product. Bricks ships their cane down. When they do their urban cane project, they ship their cane down for 4 days, and every day they get a new shipment of cane, they press it in the bar, they put it in a fermenting tank, and then they get another shipment the next day, and they do it all again, and they make it so it's consistently fresh, and then they distill it and bottle it, and it all happens in Surrey Hills, and you're like, that's kind of incredible. All of these distilleries have an amazing story, and for us to be able to showcase that is really incredible. So that was a very long, meandering walk to say thank you for everyone for being here and for your support. Where is my piece of paper as well? Because I wrote down the whole thing. Yeah. So just give yourself a round of applause for being a part of it. So thank you. The other thing is that there's always been people who've really championed Australian craft spirits and have been really supportive, not only of craft spirits, but of Dulces. We got the chance to welcome them in as judges, and they sit behind you. You've got Malcolm Gander. Malcolm used to be the rep for Mr. Black when they were first starting out, and he came into me at the corner house and was like, hey, we've got this coffee liqueur that may or may not be of interest to you. It's actually quite funny flashing back and hearing those conversations and going like, imagine someone trying to sell you Mr. Black and you're like, what's this product? You've got Corinne, who runs Gormantic, and this lady supports the entire Sydney industry more ways than one. She's always there, she always supports, she's always the first person to message you when there's something coming out, and it's a blessing to have you at that table because there is no one else who I would love to be here more. And then you've got Lindsay, who every time that something new comes out, he's always coming down and kind of with the greatest passion and excitement, kind of wanting to talk to us about it. And when we get something new that he hasn't tried, he's the first person to be like, I want to try that. We share a love for Poltergeist Gin. And he is one of the champions of the Australian kind of gin market. He runs down Gin Lane? Yeah, which is a gin subscription service, mainly focusing on Australian gins. It's probably one of the best connections you can get to Australian gins at the moment, in the terms of he gets deals that no one else can. So if you want gin, often, Lindsay's your man. So give them a round of applause, because they're coming in on a Sunday. Now, other than thanking those guys and thanking you guys, I wanted to also thank Mobius, who just took out amazing awards at some awards ceremony overseas. They have thrown their weight behind it and given us a whole heap of vodka as well. They're our house pour vodka as well. And they are the amazing bee's knees that you're drinking tonight. This vodka is actually incredible. It's made in Marrickville, and it's one of those stories where you just kind of meet the people and you hear the way in which they talk about spirits, and you kind of go, like 6 years ago, this was not a real thing, and Marrickville was a shithole. And now it's like one of the greatest areas of like Sydney's production areas. I worked in Marrickville, so I'm not like speaking out of turn. I think it's a really beautiful place, but it wasn't a beautiful place to walk around. I want to thank Bricks. They also not only donated, but gave us some stuff for the daiquiris as well. And Moors. We used, for this cocktail heats, all New South Wales distilleries as our cocktail bases. And it's kind of exciting that we can. For so long, I think I've always looked at Australian spirits as outside of New South Wales, Queensland for rums, Victoria, Hobart, or Tasmania. I keep thinking Hobart's that island. It's not. So it's exciting that we can finally get to a stage where we've got these world-class spirits that we can use in cocktails. Now, we're going to jump straight into it, but while you come and set up, whoever is first, I think it's Boris. So Boris, do you want to come and set up here? I'm going to just talk to you about how this will run for a little bit. Come bring your things up. I'm just going to kill time while you set things up, so everyone has to listen to me ramble for a little bit. Thomas has made this an incredible night. I haven't really been able to be hands-on with this. I kind of gave Tom the idea of a cocktail competition with all Australian craft spirits, and he really ran with it. So he's been the one talking to entrants, talking to distilleries, talking to local bars, national bars. It's actually quite a huge feat talking to bars around the country because everyone has a different state, different rules, and different various stages of lockdown that they're in. And it's been quite a journey. So can we all give Tom a huge round of applause for making everything like this happen? Now, that's enough. He doesn't need too much praise. Essentially what we asked applicants to do is quite a big task. Because of the COVID restrictions, part of the criteria was you not only had to make a good drink using all Australian craft spirits, you had to, any commercial products that you used had to be of Australian origin or Australian ownership. And then anything else you had to stipulate how you made your syrups, your shrubs, your things like that you were adding to it. You then also had to have a narrative. Dulce's, when we write our list based on the inspiration of people and places that changed Sydney's culture. And so we kind of extended this outward and said, we want people to tell us what inspired them to make a drink. So we hoped that we'd get a lot of local history from the places that people were making spirits from, or just history of the person that was making them. Now, the last section in the judging criteria is making sure that this drink can transfer. And that's one of the things that I really struggled with competitions normally, is that you often don't get a chance to make these drinks as a normal operating bar. And that's really difficult because you can make the most amazing drink with 8 different distillations. You can ferment something for 8 weeks. You can milk a bee. You can do various different things that give you all the credence of being a great bartender. But if you can't make that drink like for hours and hours on end in a normal bar service, you kind of fail the idea of making a good drink that could last generations, in my opinion. So that was one of the conditions of entry, is that this drink needed to be transferred to our menu and we could make it in the bar. If whoever wins, the top 3 winners will appear on our next menu with 1 wild card, and we have to be able to make it in the bar in a fast-paced cocktail environment. So that is the last criteria. So the judges have to follow all of these things and look at all of these different kind of points of contention, with not only making sure that it's a good tasty drink. Do you need much more time? Are you almost done? Excellent. So I'm going to make sure that you introduce yourself via the microphone on the desk.
1, 2.
Yeah, excellent. And then you've got, basically they get 2 minutes to set up, 5 minutes to make their drink and explain where it came from, and then the drink gets handed to the judges taste, and then I talk to the person who made the drink about some things, and then it all starts again. So, yeah, that's it. I don't have anything like that. So without further ado, Boris.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land where we gathered tonight, and pay my respect to their elders, both in presence. I extend my respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. I'm shaving a bit myself. So Alright, so the cocktail I'm going to present to you is, the name is the Golden Holden, a tribute to this famous Australian brand, and also my beloved car, which passed away. Yeah. So I'm from overseas. I'm French, and to stay in Australia, sorry for the mic. To stay in Australia, I have to complete 88 days of farm work the first year, and 6 months the second year. So I did basically 9 months of farm work. I've been around. Bought this car. It's a beautiful car. So I've been to Queensland, and to Gayndah exactly, and to pick up mandarins. So this is the first step of my cocktail. I've made a bitter of mandarin, mangoes, and also oranges from New South Wales, mangoes from Northern Territories. I was working as well in mango farm, and so I did it with lemon balm as well to make a bit of green things. Mandarin peels, 2 mandarins, 1 orange, and black pepper, because you need spice in life. Anyway, I choose white wombat. I love these animals. Be careful when you drive. I never hit one, and I will never, because I don't have car anymore. On my way in Queensland, I grabbed this wonderful rum. Damn it, I'm a fucking pirate. I love rum, and this rum is just delicious. It fits perfect with the taste of caramel, natural caramel, and it's woody at the same time. I've been to Western Australia to do my farm work. I was working in an abattoir, so I didn't put any of this. Yeah, but I was in Albany and I worked and I found this distillery, Lime Burners Distillery, delicious whiskey, world awarded whiskey by the way. This whiskey liqueur is made with curry honey. It has a taste of honey, of course, honeycombs, and a very powerful flower finish. So it's not something very girlish, but it's okay, let's start. In a lot of dirt in Australia. So this is sandalwood nuts, caramelized and processed. I put a bit of gold leaves in it. I forgot my knife. So I can cut the mandarin. I'm going to use a peel. Oh, cool. Thanks. Make a rim. This is
Wilbur. While Boris makes the Golden Holden, I'll read out his cocktail inspiration narrative. A tribute to my Golden Holden, the first car that I bought when I came to Australia. The car that took me on the roads of Queensland, picking mandarins in Gunnedah, NT picking mangoes in Katherine, WA working in an abattoir in Albany, South Australia, Victoria, ACT, New South Wales chopping wood in Robertson and packing oranges in Griffith. To complete my farm work to renew my working holiday visa. Thanks to her, I saw beautiful landscapes, I got in contact with Aboriginal communities, and learnt to live with nature. The journey I completed made me learn new flavours, new products, and rediscovered some others. She sadly passed out blowing white smoke after her last trip when she brought me to the hospital after a chainsaw accident. R.I.P. Golden Holden.
almost died. No, that's for real. So I put 8 dashes per glass of this bitter. So yeah, very bitter. It's farm work, trust me. You don't want to live that. But it's a good experience anyway. 20 mils of Lime Burners Curry Honey Whiskey. 40 mils of this delicious rum. I wish I could have put music because in my car I would always have music. You know, it's kind of cliche Aussie music, but very good one.
Sadly, we do not have music because as soon as you put music
Doesn't
on the
matter,
live
I'm
stream
gonna
in
sing.
YouTube,
I'm gonna sing New England Highway.
yeah, sing it. Go for gold, dude.
Oh, that's a drop. My ice cube. I completely forgot my ice cube. Oh, I forgot the sugar. Yeah. So this sugar, it's a sugar syrup of the processed sandalwood. Sandalwood is just awesome. It smells good. Thank you. It smells good. It calms you, and it produces delicious nuts. Very breezy. It's kind of plain in the taste, but very good just like this. Alright, sorry with the ends.
That is some very beautiful ice.
Yes, it's homemade.
I was going to be like, that's a fucking lie. Because you will be kept here if that's homemade.
Actually, I got some homemade.
It's actually, like, for those of you that aren't bartenders and are playing at home, ice like that is really, really hard to
With
make.
flowers in it, beautiful with gold leaves as well. This one, beautiful. But the thing is, I like to keep the nugget which is called caramelized sandalwood on top, and with the round one it just doesn't stay. So I like to have it like this.
Is that it? Is that your drink? Amazing!
It's not finished.
No. Well, that's usually when someone's like, when that's your drink.
Yeah, because one thing of my life in Australia would touch me a lot. As you say, I had my chainsaw accident chopping wood to take care of the bushfire this year, especially. Bushfire really affected me. I was pissed off against the people who came to the Albo to watch the fireworks. So I've been very affected by that, and that's why I love wood now. I got next to the nature, and so I decided to smoke it. Trust me, this flavor of sandalwood chip actually just fits perfect with the rum, with all the rest of the spirits, and it's just the way as well to pay a tribute to my beloved car. We just blown the head gasket, so yeah, it was supposed to be smoky. Try again. Sorry, working a lot. I've been burning midnight boils at bar 83 where I'm working lately, and very tired. But you know, guys, you know what I'm talking about. Your bartenders.
There we go.
Yeah,
Do you want to bring, is that all ready to go to the judges? Because then you can take it off at the
Yes.
judges' table.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'm gonna take it to the judge table.
Yeah,
Inflation.
excellent. Yeah. Get that sandalwood vibes.
Yeah, let's make you again.
Yeah, it's also a fire alarm issue. I didn't realise there'd be so much stuff. Hey, Rhiannon, can you make sure the fire alarms are isolated?
Oh shit, yeah, I did sense it.
Rhiannon, I'll just isolate it. That's fine.
Talking about that with the fire alarms today at the bar, I closed the entire tower. Where to?
Just over here to the judges' table. All right, so the Golden Holden, give him a clap, everyone. Look at that sexy haze as well. Love that. All right, so while we're the judges are getting the drink, and Boris has a chance to put it all down and then come back and pack down, I do want to use this time to remind everyone about the sexy conditions of COVID-19. Please don't stand while holding a glass. Make sure that you sanitize your hands, do all those things that we know and love and have been doing for quite some time. And just respect everyone's distance if people ask you to keep distance. Now, while you're packing down, can I ask you a few questions about, as someone that has never been to Catherine and doing the whole mango thing,
So again?
is picking mangoes,
I was doing irrigation system.
that's
I
not as
got
sexy?
lucky.
But what, like the irrigation, is it just fields of beautiful mango trees, blue skies? Yeah. And then you went from that to an abattoir.
Northern Territory in Catherine. And
Yeah.
then I've been after in Griffith, picking dead chooks, working in tree houses.
Such a huge swing from beautiful trees and fruits to dead animals and blood.
Yeah, tell me about that. I wish I could have stayed in Catherine. Really.
It's kind of amazing. This is one of the best things about having an excuse to do tax deductible trips to distilleries is that you get to see some amazing locations. There are some amazing distilleries around the country that are just in the most beautiful locations. Places like Kakadu Distillery, which is at the entrance to the Devil's Wilderness near the Blue Mountains. You've got Philip Moore up in Terrigal, where everything comes out of his backyard. Same thing with Brookies in the Byron rainforest. You've got Hoochery Distillery, a whole heap of amazing places that come from these beautiful, inspired landscapes. Has anyone got a chance to go to some amazing distilleries in Australia? Yes. Where was your favourite?
Oh, I only did one actually.
Where was that?
Lime Burners in Albany.
Lime Burners?
Yeah, Western Australia.
Tom, you said, where was yours?
Starwood in Port Melbourne.
That's amazing. As much as these beautiful big regional distilleries are incredible and you're like, oh, they've got this amazing lifestyle, when you look at the semantics of opening a distillery in a really urban environment, you kind of go, wow, this is beautiful. Where do you do everything? Starwood, for instance, has hundreds upon hundreds of barrels. Archie Rose is getting to that stage as well. Who is the next person, Tom? Not me yet. And it's just kind of, you get to a point of where these kind of distilleries just, you marvel at them, and they're getting to a point where we have to now get bigger infrastructure. One of the main issues with Australian distillers, for those that aren't aware, is the tax, and it's real bullshit. Boris, I might come back and... No? Okay. Cool. While I'm killing time, I might trot out that story about where you're sitting. Who hasn't been to Dulce's before? Welcome. Dulce's is from the name Dulce's comes from a Bohemian woman that was Dulcie Deemer in the 1920s. But what you're sitting in is probably the worst example of what was the worst example of one of the King's Cross strip clubs. It was less a strip club and more a live sex show venue. It had no license, it had no DA, and essentially it just meant that people were coming down here in order to wait for the train. What we've kind of found is that when we came in to to look at the lease, the real estate agent was like, just don't touch the walls or you'll get pregnant. And I was like, ha, and he's like, no, seriously, don't touch those walls. What you see now is not what it was. Underneath all these floors was like strips of concrete with like school bus chairs. It was vile, and I think part of that idea of changing King's Cross from that world to this world is kind of where this area needs to go. And for anyone that wants to open a bar, you look at what places like around here. So you've got Jangling Jacks, the Roosevelt, us, and then Dean's Lounge have just opened up around on Kellett Street, which is a homage to the old Dean's Lounge. We're starting to see a real amazing resurgence in this area and the kind of offerings that you can bring as a nighttime kind of economy that isn't the old King's Cross. Does anyone have any things that they want to talk about? Because I'm running out of things to say. Cool. You're right, without music it really is a bit of a buzzkill, isn't it? We should just make our own.
I think we'll go to sort of pre-recorded music.
Yeah. Those on the live stream, they get to experience a life with music. In here, it's silence. Just connected eyes. One of the other things that's really amazing about this change in the area of King's Cross, and what a lot of people don't realise, is I think we all celebrated King's Cross when we got to go out 1 or 2 nights a week, and we got to go out on a Friday night and be like, oh, this is amazing, I love King's Cross, it's so edgy and I feel naughty and dangerous. The reality of the King's Cross that we probably experienced was that it was by that stage quite an entrenched community of people who were just making money off the misfortune of others. There was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of sex, and there was a lot of kind of excitement. But for there to be drugs, there need to be people selling drugs and going to prison and making drugs and doing all those things. And then for there to be sex, there needs to be girls that are being taken advantage of and boys are taking advantage of. When I said to my landlord, I was like, oh, are you upset that there's no more King's Cross? And he was like, no, I'm pretty stoked that I don't have to get rid of 3 dead girls a month out of the back laneway. So I kind of very quickly had a realisation of what a change in King's Cross meant. It meant that circle of life kind of stops. And that doesn't mean that like strip clubs and nighttime like kind of venues like that cease to exist. It just means that they change and people are held accountable and there's equal breath for everyone to breathe. And it becomes a bit normal. Like the Woods Commission, we had a girl that came in the other week about the Woods Commission, and she was like, oh yeah, I was one of the old strippers that used to like work in this area, and we did shows and we'd go from club to club, and all we wanted was a safe space to change. Now when we came here, there was one men's toilet that essentially all the strippers had to use to change in and out of clothes. And she was like, yeah, it was a little bit dodgy and you used to have to go in 2 at a time. And when these guys started making noise, the guys who owned these clubs really rejected that and said, there's plenty of girls out there who want that job more than you, so you either have to shut up or get out. And I think the more that we start realising that King's Cross wasn't this glorious little fun nighttime spot, which essentially, I think a lot of it, someone the other day said to me, they were like, oh yeah, like King's Cross, like holy moly, is that what it used to be like? And I was like, what? No, absolutely not. It wasn't holy moly. That's a really beautiful version of the cross. How are you, Tommy? You still? Great. And for everyone who's waiting to come, can you just make sure all of your stuff is ready for when you come in? Oh.
Next up is Tom from Public Haze. He is from New South Wales. Give him a round of applause.
Basically, there's two things you need to know about me when thinking about this drink. One, I have really terrible memory, and two, I work way too much. At any one time, I tend to have minimum 3 jobs on the go. I tend to measure weeks by hours worked, and I forget the life part of the work-life balance. So there's 2 things I wanted this drink to do. The first was to be a sort of soft reminder to us all to, well, mainly to myself, but also to others, to remember to take some time for yourself. So this drink is called the Cbd Haze because essentially all the jobs that I work tend to revolve around the CBD and the adjacent areas. And so the only like little snippets of daylight or outside time that I actually get, I look up, see the sky between the buildings, and there's just that like nice little haze we get around the city. And then it's just back into another venue, another shift, and that's what my days become. And I fall into a pattern of just, thinking in that shift by shift mentality, which isn't a sustainable thing to do. It's an easy pattern to fall into, but it's not a sustainable one because you would just burn yourself out and you won't be able to keep going. And there's a reason I and bartenders like me work 50, 60-hour weeks in this industry is because we're doing what we love. Like at the end of the longest double, at the end of the longest week, I'm still thrilled to be spending so much of my time shaking tins, talking shit, and working with some of the best people. So I wanted this drink to be a reminder to just take a moment, check in with yourself, and just make sure, you're looking after yourself and you're thinking longer term and thinking of things outside of work, because it turns out there are things outside of work. The second thing I wanted this drink to be was easy to remember what's in it. So the Cbd Haze, partially named because CBD is the 3 core ingredients in it. The C is the Cerise gin from Bass and Flinders Distillery in Mornington Peninsula. Lovely sort of wine-based spirit with a very nice floral, silky texture to it, and a really nice sort of rosewater Turkish delight vibe that I wanted to build this cocktail around. All 100% grape-based spirit. This particular one distilled entirely from Shiraz grapes on site at the distillery. Then the B in CBD usually stands for the Bartender's Cup brandy from St Agnes Distillery in South Australia. Tonight we're making a quick substitute because COVID, but it will honestly work with any good solid Australian brandy. The Bartender's Cup's a little punchier and more structured, so it does tend to lift up the cerise. But the 23rd Street Not Your Nana's brandy is excellent bang for buck, has a really nice light fruitiness that I think will also complement the cerise quite well. And then the D in CBD is for Dead Man's Drop Black Spice Rum from Stone Pine Distillery in Bathurst. Really lovely, sort of silky, plush, without being heavy spiced rum. Has a nice roundness to it that I think would just really help bring all the other elements of the cocktail together. Essentially, to remember what's in the drink, all you have to do is remember the name. Some of you who've noticed I'm using a rum, a gin, and a brandy and the lovely tiki glasses in front of me, may have put together that this is my take on a fog cutter, and I chose that drink because I wanted to draw on that imagery, like cutting through the fog, the funk of whatever you're in at the moment, to try and remember that there's life outside of work. Another reason this is called the Cbd Haze is, as I said, it's where I spend all of my time doing what I love, doing what I do. But I just like to think that whenever someone orders or makes this drink, it serves as a little reminder. There's a little voice in the back of your head, just asking, are you okay? Are you looking after yourself? Have you checked in with yourself? Making sure you're not just falling into the pattern of that shift by shift mentality. I also chose a fog color because I wanted to spice up the orgeat a little bit. I've made a toasted native macadamia orgeat, which adds a really nice punch to the end of the drink that really, I think, helps accentuate it and keep it like lasting and lingering long after the drink's gone. And then the other change from a classic fog color, instead of orange juice, I'm using a nice yellow grapefruit juice, which, because the black spice rum and the Cerestian do have a fruit element to them, a little bit sweeter, it helps balance it back out, keep the acid sugar balance a bit. The other reason I chose a fog color is because it's a nice big drink. Let's face it, it's hot outside, and there's no better way I can think of to unwind than by sitting down with a nice big cold drink surrounded by a bunch of beautiful people. So cheers to you all. Here's the part where we go loud, just shaking. Looking at the other contestants, I kind of wish I'd gone for a stir drink.
I'm actually really excited to see your shake, Tom. Like every bartender I know, like you know when you watch musicians and everyone's always like, oh, if you watch a musician, it's kind of like the face that they make while they're really in song is like their sex face. It's kind of the same with bartenders and their shake. Yeah, always.
I'm nothing if not vigorous.
Woof. That was good. Where did you get your tiki glasses?
These I appropriated from Papagetti's last night.
So you stole them.
No, I asked express permission, and Josh is here today to keep an eye on them, make sure I'm treating them nicely.
Do you, like, anyone who owns bars or works in bars, do you, like, the weirdest shit gets stolen from bars? Like, at Catalina, they had to screw down their yacht pictures in the toilets because, like, middle-aged women were walking out with them. A friend of mine, he's like, before we screwed down the yacht pictures, like, 8 would go in, like, 6 months. And you're like, it's Catalina. Like, are they taking back the bill that they just paid? Like,
The number one thing we get nicked at Papa's is our absinthe spoons, because they're all nice and,
oh,
scrolled
yeah.
and intricate and a bit hard to keep an eye on.
Someone was telling us in Darwin that someone stole a couch. Yeah, so apparently they got a call from the neighbours because they were doing road work out the front and they couldn't move the couch past the front door of the bar, that they just left the couch there. Darwin, man.
Tom was saying to me at the bar, he very much hopes that you don't win, because otherwise he's going to be spending all his time smashing ice into the flashlights for me. That's yours, you can hold on to it.
You guys actually need that ice. I'm thinking, yeah, that counts to be ice that I've learnt here. Crushed ice is such an art to doing it well.
I'm very thankful that Papa's got a machine that does it for us.
Every time I used to do it at the Roosevelt, it just looked like sludge, and people were like, "What is this?" It was like, it's just wet, cold water. what's that you're dribbling? You're drizzling over the
So
top.
this is the McWilliams semi-sweet Aperol. It's basically the our take on semi-sweet or Amontillado style sherry. To kind of keep playing with that sort of nut fruity kind of vibe we get from the cerise and the orgeat. And in keeping with the traditional spec of the vodka.
Excellent.
Now the judges will be pleased to know I sanitized my hands before coming up here.
As everyone should be. Sanitize, sanitize, sanitize.
Now I just chose these cocktail picks because they're the ones I have at home because I'm a goth at heart. But I realize that's also what you're going to look like if you let yourself go now.
Oh.
So yeah, Cbd Haze. Thank you for coming through whatever funk you found yourself in.
I really like that. One of the things that, like, as a business owner in the hospitality, that you don't really connect with until you are responsible for a lot of people's mental health is the mental health of bartenders. For norms, as we call those people who don't work in a bar, normals or day walkers. It's actually it's one of the most isolating professions I think you can kind of have, is because all you do is serve people who are spending their nights going out and doing fun things. And you often don't get a chance, like when you're working 5 nights a week, you don't get a chance to go out and socialise. Now, is the next person ready? And excellent. Give another round of applause to Tom for not only making a drink, but highlighting some mental health awareness. And let's cut to some music before I ramble about nothing again.
One of the other really good things about holding a competition for bartenders is getting to like meet new bars and engage with them. Dean's Lounge, I mentioned before, is just behind us on Kellett Street, and they have just opened, and I actually really fucking love it. So if you aren't drinking here, you should be drinking there. Nowhere else, just us two venues. In King's Cross area, you can go to all the other bars that other people are from here if you need to. All right, so this one, we're going to manage it a little bit differently because obviously just before people we're unable to do the microphone. So I might talk you through with your stuff and we'll go through in a certain process. So you have the mic and then I'll move it out of the way. We're all learning for the finals. So we're just trying new things, dipping our toe in the water of digital worlds. So this is Jade. She's from Dean's Lounge. And this is the Black of the Berry.
Hey everyone.
So talk us through your inspiration and your narrative.
No worries. I'm going to chat a little bit about myself, my drink, make the drink, chat a little more. That's kind of the person that I am. You can ask my manager down here.
Always into the microphone then.
Always into the microphone though, as cleverly worn. So I'm 22. I've been bartending for about 6 years. You can do the maths on that one. There's some dodgy pubs in Canberra. Thanks, guys. So,
You're from Canberra, same.
I am from Canberra. Where am I? Okay, this is a
Yeah,
chat
we'll
for
do that
This is a
later.
chat for
Look at us! Woo! Winner!
Thank you, Dal. So the drink's called the Black of the Berry. As you can see, I have a little bit of spice in this complexion, but I believe that the Australian experience is a super multicultural thing. And so for me, it relates really deeply personally to me, showing that something can be Australian, something can be different, and Australia is a place where that's accepted. So, I mean, I guess that's my peace out, love the world chat. So I'll start making this, I suppose. I'm going to rim the glasses first. So I've got a little plate here that none of you can see because I am very high and very tall. It's a Kakadu Plum sugar toss. It's about 3 parts toasted sugar. I just did it in the dehydrator, but you can do it in an oven if you so desire.
What is the reason you pick Kakadu Plum? Because it's obviously quite a flavour.
Yeah, so I find it a little bit malty in taste. Kind of reminds me of an Ovaltine, if you guys ever had that. I don't know if I'm like too young for this gen or something. But, yes, I'm flexing my youth. Thank you. It's kind of malty in taste. I picked Kakadu Plum. I grew up in Ghana in West Africa, and I moved to Canberra when I was about 8. And so my first house in primary school, sporting house, was Kakadu. So shout out to Curtin Primary School. It was the first kind of experience that I had with traditional, like Indigenous Australian words and the Indigenous Australian culture. So that to me holds a pretty high resonance in the relation to Australia, as they are the traditional custodians of this land.
Did you do much research into Kakadu, how they harvest Kakadu?
No.
It's actually really amazing. It's just become one of those superfoods that people like spirulina, but probably a bit more exciting than spirulina. And often what they do is they harvest it with the help of the traditional custodians of the land, and it's in one of the more ethical and more kind of responsible ways that they can do it in regards to engaging with the Indigenous community whose land it is, and following their processes and understanding the way in which they can kind of achieve the best yield, but also still respecting the land.
Also, I would love a jigger down here, if that's possible.
A jigger is a measuring cup.
Is a measuring cup.
For all
Not
of us playing at home.
something else.
I love that phrase, playing at home. Like there's people at home with a jigger ready. Like, they're just like, I'm ready to pour. Where's my jigger? Like, people are going to write in Tom and just be like, she didn't have a fucking jigger.
The boys are actually at work live streaming. They're keeping it behind the bar, so they'll play along. Alright, so first up I've got the Archie Rose Rye Malt Whiskey. This is the base spirit. We're looking for that kind of warmth, heat, reminds you of the fact that you are drinking. It's got a nice little burn to it. I picked Archie Rose because when I first moved to Sydney, which was in about 2017, my first house was just across the road from the Rose Distillery. It has a nice little place in my heart, and also, you know, they make quality product. They're really putting Australian spirits forward and really pushing the lead to get Australian spirits international and worldwide, in my personal opinion, of course. Next up, we've got the Never Never Black Juniper Amaro here, going in with 20 mils of this. It's lighter than a typical Amaro, but it's still got a really nice depth of flavour. It's obviously juniper heavy, so a little bit gin reminiscent in taste. Creates a really nice colour. And I am the biggest Never Never fangirl to ever exist, so I had to include a Never Never product in my cocktail.
They've grown so rapidly. Like we visited them just before we opened the bar, and they were using what is essentially a 2 by 1 meter space in a brewery's storeroom, and it was just a tiny still that they had to wheel all the yeast and malt out in order to set up. And now they've got their own distillery in a beautiful hill in the middle of a winery. So good work for them.
Yeah, they're expanding so rapidly. It's really interesting. I had my first tasting with them about 2 years ago. So
yeah, it's fascinating.
Same story. Then finally, I've got a dry Australian Fino Sherry here. Again, 20 mils. It's a super simple drink, stirred down. I'm just going for something with a bit of complexity and flavour, but that you can smash out on a Saturday service. I'm a bartender at a cocktail bar, and I have better things to do.
Like 80 Negronis.
Nothing better than a Negroni.
It's not great, but
I'm going to go on my tippy toesies.
I'll move
Can
this
everyone
here.
still hear me up the back? I'm pretty loud. Next up, get it out of my
I'll
face.
just hold it to your mouth.
Oh, okay. This is a bit...
Oh, yeah. We're all learning. We're all
We
doing,
both hear each other, but
we're
we
doing
this
things
close,
that we're
really?
not used to.
My girl's out the back, bro. She's going to have a bunch of people here.
Yeah, my one's there too. It's good ice though, isn't it?
I've never seen us like this.
Yeah. Oh, your ice looks like that when you get it from us.
Once every Saturday. Alright. Just gonna stir.
Can we get some strainers down here? Cocktail equipment. Potato, could you grab some strainers? Thank you. Do you want to double strain or just single strain? Look at me using bartender terminology.
Effective. This is what we're doing.
I've had to work every night this week, and so I feel like I'm really hospo. So I'm like, yeah, double strain that. Just single strain for that one in a Hawthorn. Just drop some flexing lingo.
It's almost like you work in a bar.
I did this week. Can we also grab a tray as well, Tom, so we can carry these to the Le Judges, which is French for judges?
I'm just going to warn you right now, I'm not carrying a tray of new bears downstairs.
Tom will.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, Bennett. Well, I might.
Alrighty, guys. That's it. Black the berry.
You just want to put them on the tray and he'll. Alright, that is tasty. Was that a lot more? Yeah, good. We're just, again, working. He owns Dean's Lounge, so that's. But we're obviously still trying to work out a better way for the finals to do this, but I hope that works. Who is next? Can we make sure that they have cocktail equipment, spirit stuff ready, and we'll put music on. All right. So the next one is Peter.
Now, Peter comes from Babylon Rooftop. Has anyone been to Babylon? I love this bar because essentially they turned a roof of Westfield into something interesting. Again, we are going to do the same kind of thing that we just did before, procedure. You tell me the name, and then give me a bit of a story, and then we'll just kind of casually chat through, but into the mic.
Yeah, of course. The name of the cocktail, it's called the Bushrangers Gambit. I named it after sort of my heritage. Went back through the family tree, found out that we are related to one of the bushrangers that roam the New South Wales countryside.
Was it the beard that gave it away?
I thought I'd keep theme.
Yeah, doing well. I was like, I get it.
He was, by the time he died at age 27, after being shot by the police, he had over 100 robberies and thefts accredited to him and his gang, but they were also known for being very chivalrous. They'd go in and they'd hold an entire town hostage, but then when they left, they would pay the whatever venue they kept them in, some normally the local pub. They'd pay the owner for the food that they fed them, the drinks that they gave them, and just for the inconvenience of holding the town hostage, as well as locking a few local cops in the jail just for shits and giggles.
Where was the bushranger? Like what area?
It was around Goulburn, those sorts of areas. I think Forbes was another one of the places they sort of
Yeah, right.
hit.
Yeah, you picked some good rural towns.
Yeah.
All right. So talk us through what's going into the drink.
So the main in spirit is the Archie Rose white rye whiskey. Sorry, it's something that I love. All the Archie Rose products. I've done a few of their mixing classes, the gin and the whiskey. They're fantastic, and I've always wanted to do something with the white rye. I find that the flavours that I have, they're subtle and they just mix really well. And then we've moved on to the barrel spice bitters from the Australian Bitters Company. I actually use this one in one of my wedding cocktails, just because I love it that much. And then we have 2 house-made syrups. So one pepperberry to give it a nice little bit of a kick, just subtly, and the roasted wattle seed to give it sort of that smokiness and almost coffee flavour.
It sounds pretty tasty. Are they macerated syrups, or do you bring them up through the boil and stuff?
The macerated syrups. So just standard 1-to-1 sugar, and then crack the pepperberries and let them sit overnight. Maybe a couple of days if you want.
Right. And then you've got some really beautiful, wish we had the option to show the garnishes already. But what are these? They look like grapes.
They look like grapes, but they're actually finger limes. So I will be muddling them as well, just to get that lovely caviar-like inside, just for that little bit of tartness.
Amazing. Go for gold. Make away.
No problem. So I'm just popping both the finger limes in, just to start releasing some of the juices, and then once I've burst a few of the caviar-like bubbles, I will be adding 60 mils of the white rye.
Do you know where finger limes come from? Like what the
I do not.
I actually don't either, so I was hoping you would, so I could be like, oh, that's a fascinating story, and then sell it off as my own later when I'm working in the bar.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
Yes. You find that interesting tidbit, you can just, I just heard the other day. Just
That finger limes magically appear.
they look like fingers, apparently. I'm going to do something a bit strange here now. I'm going to take out the zests because they will actually be our garnish.
How long did it take you to kind of experiment and R&D this recipe?
I'd say a good couple of days. Yeah, thankfully my work was very supportive and letting me do it while I was getting paid. That's always a plus.
That is always a plus.
So I'm just going to add the ice now, and then I'll be adding the remaining ingredients as well.
Is there a reason why you add the ice before the remaining ingredients, or just for fun?
A little bit for fun, but I just want to get a slight dilution for the white rye before I start adding things, and a little hard to muddle your finger lines when you've got ice all over.
Yeah, totally.
So then for each one, it's 3 dashes of the double spice bitters. So I'm on 6.2. And then it is 15 mils of both the wattle seed and the pepperberry.
They have such great colours in those syrups. Like the pepperberry comes out with this really beautiful purple or like pale pink.
It was very unexpected.
Yeah.
I do like the wattle seed, the sort of almost golden syrup-like colour it gets.
Yeah. Now, do you need strainers or anything? No, you got everything.
Good for the strainers.
Magic.
So I'm just going to add a little bit more ice. And then stir. Double strain, just so that all of those sort of fine little particles don't go floating in the drink. Because I personally don't like chewing on things while I'm drinking.
More work is needed, really, when you're chewing on something.
Exactly. And then as a garnish, we take those finger limes we rescued earlier, and we use them as a little canoe that floats around.
Very pretty.
There we go, the Bushranger's Gambit.
shade, and she's from Bar Toto in the Central Coast, Edlong, which is pretty amazing. So welcome. Did you drive down today?
Yes, this evening.
Oh wow!
I got the day off. I was quite lucky.
Well, that's and what Bar Toto's like? Because I've seen a lot of the bars that have been in here. Tell us about Bar Toto for a little bit.
It's a little Italian cocktail bar. They've been established for probably about 7 years now, 7 to 9 years.
Yeah.
I've been there for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. Really good.
Like, so Italian cocktail bar, so classics or using Amaros, stuff like that.
Both, everything.
That's cool.
There's a lot of encouragement in the creativity aspect of stuff.
That's really good. I really love those bars that start using things like Amaros and aperitifs and things like that from like other countries that we're not really used to using as mainstay ingredients. There's this amazing bar in New York called, is it Amaro? Yeah, and they only use Amaros and digestives and stuff, and it's incredible. Like, I went in there and I was like, can I get a gin and tonic? And they were like, no. Much like when people come in here and they'll get a Jameson's, and I'm like, no. So give me a little bit of a rundown of your cocktail, which is called Australia Street.
Alright, so I chose Australia Street due to my love of the band called Sticky Fingers. Thank you. That's purely why I chose it. I figured it fit the criteria, and a good drink has a good soundtrack. Sorry. In my cocktail, we've got the 4 Pillars Rare Dry Gin, the Distillery Botanica Lemon Myrtle Liqueur.
Which is another Central Coast staple.
In fact, they live very close to me. It's only about a 25-minute drive. I've also used the Australian Bitters Company Grapefruit Bitters. And then I've used calendula flowers from my auntie's farm and created these two for display, and these two I'll be using in the cocktail. I used a calendula tea from the flowers to create the syrup, then to create the glaze. And also a lemon leaf from my mum's lemon tree at her home.
Heaven. And what is this exciting little number here?
This one, it's not strictly Australian, but I had a conversation and they said it was okay.
It's glitter. It's edible glitter.
It's edible glitter, gold edible glitter. For sparkly, shiny, sunny days.
I've always wanted to use glitter in a drink. Right? I think it's just the gay in me kind of trying to escape. Alright, so I'm going to give it over to you, and then you're going to make your drink. Talk us through.
Beautiful. So I'm starting by smoking the glasses with a lemon leaf. Went to Bunnings to get this this morning. Little flamethrower.
Little Brulo torch never did harm to anyone.
Except for me right now when it's not lighting.
Do you want to grab our relay torch, Tom? Because it's got a bigger flame. That's not a thing, but it's... This is a really amazing way to smoke it, because as we saw before with Boris, you can do mass smoking, which is incredible. I love when you can do a big lot, or you can individually do it. So it's really interesting to see the two ways that you can smoke drinks. That one's like a big dirty one. So pull the back lever down and then press the button. Yeah. Yeah. Now, for those that have smoked it, I didn't get a chance to talk to you about it, Boris, but do you feel, how long do you find that you need to smoke a glass for in order for the drink to maintain that smokiness?
Preferably, I do it for about 30 seconds. Generally, the glasses that we use at work that we smoke have been kept in the freezer, so we don't want to keep them there too long because they will pop.
Yeah.
Sweet. While they're smoking away, I'm just going to measure out my ingredients. So I use 60 mils of the 4 Pillars Red Dry Gin.
Have you been to the new 4 Pillars outpost, I guess, in Surrey Hills?
Yes.
if you're staying the night, get a chance to go over. If you're not, come back sometime. It's actually really amazing. They've it's fascinating, to be honest.
I mean, I won't be able to drink.
No, I like you may not see, but behind this table, I think you are quite heavily pregnant.
I am.
Which is kind of amazing. So I'm guessing you tasted a lot of the drinks. Yeah. That's even better. It's just like, oh, just make it again. Let's see if it's right.
10 mils each at the Distillery Botanica.
Lemon myrtle. How do you find working with lemon myrtle?
I love it.
It's one of those really delicate flavours in Australian spirits. It definitely went through a bit of a trend, and then I think people got really into lemon myrtle, almost too into lemon myrtle, and it's now only just starting to come back again with things like the lemon myrtle liqueur, which is, I think, a perfect balance of it. How many dashes are you doing of those?
2 each. So that's the Grapefruit Australian Bitters Company bitters. And then this is from Calendula Syrup. So I'm using 10 mils per cocktail for this as well.
Now, while you pour that and stir it down, I want to read your cocktail inspiration and narrative because it's actually pretty acute. It takes me back to my childhood. As a child, I spent a few years of my growth in the area of Wagga Wagga. Being so young, my favourite things were playing outside in the dirt and putting everything I found in my mouth. I have cherished memories of eating lemons straight from the tree with my brothers and running around the garden with the flora and fauna growing wild in our yard. This cocktail uses the calendula from my auntie's farm, still located in Wagga, and the lemon leaf from my mum's home, symbolising for me 2 of the best things in life, family and food.
Did I miss the explanation on the flavour from the calendula?
No, do you want to tell us a bit about calendula flavour?
I more chose it because of the family aspect and because it was from my auntie's farm. I found that to be quite intriguing.
Does it give off a particular flavour, especially with something like lemon myrtle? Introducing a new botanical has to kind of have something to hold up against it.
They fit together really well. I've only tried a sip of this cocktail.
The pregnancy, yeah.
But it is tasty, I assure you. I had people tell me it was. The calendula, yeah, I chose it mainly because of it being from my auntie's farm and for the family resemblance that I had towards that, and how well it does fit with the lemon myrtle, being quite a light flavour itself as well.
Is it used in any other kind of edible things, like teas or things?
I'm not 100% sure.
This is very experimental then, I like that.
This is the edible glitter.
Look at it, it's fucking cool. There is an Australian, I'm not going to call them a distillery, but they make a unicorn something. It's like a unicorn, does anyone know? It's like, have you tried it? Yeah, and it's like, I would say it's riddled with glitter.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And it's beautiful. Like you look at it, yeah, like fucking Christmas. Yes. This is the gay agenda.
You better get out tonight with that.
Yeah, man, we're going out. All right, so what do we do now?
This is just the glaze, and I'm just putting a thin layer around the rim of the glass.
How do you make your glaze? So is this the same as a sugar syrup, or do you follow a different kind of methodology?
I took it a little bit further. So to make the Calendula syrup that I was using, talking and doing it at the same time is hard. So I made the Calendula Syrup with the tea, the Calendula tea. And then I took that further and turned it into the glaze while adding more sugar.
Just reducing it in a hot pan or super, yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously when you reduce something, it allows you to kind of take a lot more of the moisture out and therefore you get a denser product. Bar talk. Oh my god. I'm like all about this glitter. Like, can I grab a tray, Tom?
When those come over, can we get a little taste of the calendula?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What season? Did you make this especially for summer, or was there a certain season in mind for you?
It's definitely leaning towards summer for me. However, I more heard about the competition and was really intrigued.
Excellent. Hey Tom, thank you. Can you do this? Because I don't know. All right. So is that it? Is that all of them?
Yep, and I'm just going to these.
And that's the calendula glaze. Might take that over so we can smell the calendula. Obviously, this has triggered some high interest. There we go. I'll take the others over. Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. So that is it. Did you want to add anything more, or?
I believe that's everything.
Thank you so much. Give a round of applause, everyone. Okay, so while the judges finish the deliberation, I just want to read to you out the actual criteria in which they are judging everything on. It's a point system of 100. So what that basically means is that there are points allocated to all the different categories, and I'll read it out to you as we go, and this is how they're scoring everything. So the first subject is at a glance, and it's 15 points in total, and that's the appearance, and then you get name and inspiration. Appearance is 5 points, and name and inspiration is 10 points. Is it good? Is 55 points in total. Its use of spirits and local botanicals and ingredients, which is 15 points. Taste and balance is 25 points. Creativity and difference, out of the box thinking, is 15 points. Do they want it is the last section, and it's 30 points in total. Complexity versus simplicity, can this drink be made in any bar, is worth 10 points. Versatility and adaptability, all great classics are malleable, is 10 points again. And mass appeal, will customers want this drink, is 10 points. Now, these judges fill the gambit of essentially each different criteria of people who consume and look at liquor. You've got a kind of a corporate side of it where you look at the way in which people sell spirits. You've got a consumer point of view in the way of like what current trends are and in which way people and Australian bars are using certain spirits. And then you've got like a consumer point of view of bartender, person over the counter kind of interaction. So the judges have a lot of experience in kind of working out those different gamuts and are able to kind of understand and put themselves in that position. So they're being quite detailed with this, and I think as you should, because we had some very, very incredibly good things up there tonight. I haven't seen any of these either, so every now and then an email will come through with like a title of a cocktail, and I'm like, ooh, Golden Holden, that sounds sexy, or like other things, but I haven't been able to expose to what these drinks are until I see them. Around the nation tomorrow is the day of all the other heats. So we've got Melbourne having their heats, which is combined with South Australia, I think. You've got Queensland at Savile Row. You've got WA with Palace Arcade, and Tasmania is at Gold Bar. Bad Frankie's is hosting the Victorian heats. Northern Territory's being flung into one of those. And Canberra as well. Beyond that, when they get finalised, what happens after that point is all the finalists, so there's 2 finalists from each state, they get forwarded to us on Monday night, if not Tuesday. Tuesday we start making everything from scratch. And this is like part of the point in regards to complexity and simplicity and versatility and adaptability. The main issue with this competition is that because you can't fly into state and because we're putting it on our menu, we have to be able to make it at the bar, which is probably the point of difference from a lot of cocktail competitions, and it means that we will be creating everything. So we had some amazing applications, and from what I heard, but a lot of them required things like 10-day ferments, which we cannot do. So essentially, what happens at this point is from Tuesday we start making all the drinks ourselves, and then come Monday, you are all welcome to come back and watch what happens. We'll be crossing live to the people who make or pre-recorded message, whatever happens. I'm not sure yet. But go with me on that one. We'll be crossing whatever it is. I think it's just there. I'm going to stand here like I made a drink. We'll be talking to those people directly, and they'll be telling, through recorded message or whatever it is, telling us how and why they created their drink and all the process behind that. We'll be making the drink, and those drinks will be then given to the judges to judge from the hand of someone who has no personal connection with the drink, essentially. From that judging point, whoever wins will have a first, second, and third place, and there'll be a wild card that will be picked. And then those 4, the winner will win $500 cash, which is very generous from me. No, it's actually like, I think at this point in time, hospitality has gone through a really fucked time with COVID-19. I think a lot of people have had really shit experiences with either their bosses, either their venues, or just customers, or bartenders have been put in really awkward situation where sometimes they haven't really had the means to afford rent and food and things like that. And if we can create a competition which encourages them to think local and raise Aussie spirits, we should raise Aussie spirits by giving them $500 in cash. And then some booze, because they don't have to blow it all on booze. So the winner will win like a couple of these. Second place will win another section of this and some other things that we're still getting in. And then third place will win probably a third place size thing. And they'll get on the menu. And then the wild card will not win anything except celebration. But they'll be on the menu as well. So that's kind of the process in which we run. This is actually really cumbersome, sorry. So until that point, so really from Tuesday onward, we'll be able to start seeing the machinations of if these things work. And then on Monday, the following Monday, what date is that? Is that the 14th? Yeah. From the Monday the 14th, you'll know the national winner of the Australia Coupe, which I tried to buy a coupe-looking trophy, and this was the biggest you could get. Yeah, it looks really good, and it actually looks like something you drink out of. When I went looking, the woman was like, "Oh no, this one's really big," and I was like, "Yeah, but it doesn't look like a coupe," and she was like, "What the fuck's a coupe?" And I was like, "It's my competition." So yeah, excellent. Do we have results? Excellent. What we'll do is we'll announce the first place and the second place, which are finalists. We'll have a couple of words of what the judges liked about it, just one or two words. After that, what I'd encourage every participant to do is talk, if you would like to talk to the judges individually and get some feedback. You've made it through quite a large amount of applicants already. A lot of the time, when you listen to the criteria, there's little things that will flag that will give you reasons as to why you may or may not have progressed. Talk about them, because it doesn't mean that your drink is not good. It just means that it doesn't follow that criteria. And these guys have amazing amounts of knowledge that they can pass on and help you refine and plan for a different competition if you want to go further, or even put it in your own bars. So, should I walk over to yeah, I'm going to walk over to the judges.
Test.
Alright, so I don't know how to do this. I don't know where Tom is. Tom, why did I turn it off? Oh, you turned it off. Alright, oh my god, what's happening? Are you guys just handing me bits of paper? Yeah, I'm going to give this to Lindsay, and Lindsay's going to talk because you're going to announce probably the first one. Yeah.
We all agreed on this one unanimously, and probably the standout of the cocktails that we had, Jay, the Black and the Berry. So from my personal perspective, the simplest cocktails are the hardest to get right. A few ingredients, but they have to be perfectly picked, perfectly balanced. And this is my kind of cocktail. I would order this again and again. Didn't want them to take away what I had left. But we had a few more to try. So the sooner you can make me one of those, the better. Thank you, that was great.
Do you want to do the next one? Okay. And then we'll go to Mal. He's going to do the second runner-up. This is both the finalists that go through to the grand final on Monday.
So guys, just firstly, a massive congrats. There was some fantastic cocktails to put through, and I'm sure you all noticed that it took us a little while of deliberation to actually pick the second place. As much as Jade was fantastic, the next ones through they were really good. So it took us a lot of going through, but after a bit of deliberation, we thought that Shade with Australia Street was I just thought that the concept was fantastic in the way that you made it very personal, and I also think that the balance was great, and using those Australian ingredients and allowing them to shine was really, really good. Well done.
Excellent. Congratulations again to those guys. Thank you to our judges. That's a really
really fucking hard job. I'm a judge on the Monday, so I'm going to be doing that thing now too. So thank you to all the people who put in submissions. Thank you to the shortlisted guys that are here today. Thank you to all the support and the people who did everything they could to help support the people who made drinks. You could, like the business owners, the friends, the husbands, anyone who was able to kind of lend a hand. It's really hard for people to make drinks, and especially with such a short time frame. So shout out to them, to the distilleries as well, who supported these people. It's very hard to get things from Australian distilleries because they've got very limited supply of stuff, and sometimes the product that they have is quite valuable. So to give those kind of gifts to people who want to enter a competition is a very, very generous support. And thank you to all of you guys who came tonight. I really appreciate it, and I think everyone who is part of this competition very appreciates the support. So thank you, everyone. Now everyone just like have some fun and do some shots and shit. All right.